Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about the spectrum. Is everybody on this damn spectrum? And this subject came up in conversation and with somebody, because I know a guy with a daughter who's autistic, and it just came up in conversation about the autistic daughter. Cute little girl, but she can't communicate, right? So she can be a handful sometimes. Then I was informed that it's a spectrum, right? And I've heard this before, but then I guess that the spectrum goes from extreme to people like my friend's daughter, who is unable to communicate, all the way over, I was told, to people who just can hold a job and hold a relationship and just basically live life. And I asked that person, so the other end of the spectrum is normal, just normal people. And they had to concede, yes, it's just normal people. So basically what I'm being told is that everyone is on this spectrum, or some kind of spectrum, right? Because on the other end of the spectrum is just normal. We're just normal people. So 99% of the population are on, and there's more than one spectrum. It's just not autism. It's, ADHD and all this other stuff, I guess. But there's these spectrums. So even if you're completely normal, which I'm not claiming to be, you're still on this spectrum, okay? And just your normalness, your lack of symptoms of whatever it is the spectrum you're on, the lack of any symptoms, your complete normalness is a symptom, okay? You're too normal. You go to work, you come home, you kiss the wife, you hug the kids, whatever, you putter around in the garage, do whatever you do, sit on the couch and just vegetate if you get a hard job, and you just live a normal life. That's too normal. You're on the spectrum. You need to get medicated. All right. And these kind of medications, they're not, you take a couple pills, the doctor gives you a bottle of pills and you take them until the infection's gone or whatever, and then you quit. No, these type of medications are for life. Okay. You've got to take that shit for the rest of your life because you're on the spectrum. And this is the road we're going down. Okay. This is what we're being told. This is what we're being taught about these spectrums. You're on the spectrum, so you've got to chain yourself to the pharmaceutical industry for the rest of your life. You can't stop taking this stuff. And a lot of times you can't stop taking this stuff because the side effects of quitting are way worse than the actual problem itself was in the beginning. All right? All the anxiety and the hallucinations and the brain zaps and stuff is way worse than you're just being too normal, right? So hell, you keep taking your pills. You don't want to go through that. A couple of weeks of that will seem like an eternity. And I think that's just where we're headed. That's where it's another form of taxation, if you ask me. They're getting us on these pills. And these companies and it's every company across the board, right? Netflix, Google with their Google Photos and all this stuff. Now they want you to pay a monthly fee to store your photos. And if you stop, then your photos are gone. All of your memories are gone. You can't do that, right? You can't. You got to pay them. They're literally holding your memories hostage now, unless you pay them their fee for the rest of your life. I mean, you can download them all, or you can pay Google even more money to send you hard copies, I guess, if they're still doing that, that kind of stuff. I mean, there are ways around it. You can, back to the pharmaceutical thing, you can realize that being normal is just normal and not take the medication in the first place. You can get DVDs instead of Netflix and this kind of stuff. But all these monthly subscriptions, they hook us into this stuff. And I believe that these companies have learned from the government. It's just a tax. It's just a tax for shit that should be normal, right? Being normal should be normal. You shouldn't have to pay a tax every month, a subscription tax, just to be normal. You shouldn't have to pay some kind of fee to keep your photographs. They should make, you know, there are technologies, and it should be easier, but you can keep all your photographs in a very convenient, easy way without paying anybody, right? You can store all your digital stuff. But when you don't pay anybody, then they don't put the effort into making it really convenient and marketing the stuff, you know what I mean? We don't even know about it. We don't even know about these other options because they're not marketed. All you see is Google's monthly plan or Apple's monthly plan or Microsoft's OneDrive shit, or you know what I mean? You pay a monthly fee to have them protect your digital life, and then you can't live without it. But I'm one of those people who just aren't that sentimental. Right? I just, old pictures and stuff, I'll delete them. I'll change my Google account or whatever and let that shit just sitting on a server somewhere for eternity. I'm not that sentimental. So I don't care. But a lot of people are. And these huge companies have learned how to use psychology to trap us into these monthly fees, these monthly taxes. And they literally hold your information, your digital history hostage for this monthly fee, for this tax. And that's if you look at it, that is going across industries. The pharmaceutical industry, we're all on a spectrum, and they want to get us on these medications, these lifelong medications. They don't want us, you know, to take a bottle of pills or half a bottle of pills or whatever and get fixed and be done with it. You know, they don't want that. Why would they do that when they could make more money by getting you on something for the rest of your life and just taking a chunk out of and that's gone? You might as well just say that's gone before your paycheck even hits your bank. You know that X amount of dollars is gone for that prescription, or maybe it comes out of your insurance or whatever. But, you know, that money's gone. They get that money, no matter who pays for it. Maybe the taxpayers pay for it, whatever, but it's paid for. They get that money. So, yeah, and they're not concerned. That these companies, that's one thing, if I could teach people, especially the younger generations, that these companies are not concerned for our welfare. They're not concerned for our well-being. They're not concerned for our finances, our prosperity. They are concerned with their bottom line, and that is it. They'll convince you that you're on some kind of spectrum when all you need is some yoga or something, some Zen meditation or whatever. People used to just learn how to relax, find some way to relax with the ganja or the meditation or whatever, listen to some soothing music or something. Now we got to take these pills with these insane side effects that they rattle off at the end of the commercial. Blah, 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 blah. You can't listen fast enough to understand what the hell they're saying. But yeah, and this is all for profit. It's all to get you basically addicted to this medication or this service or whatever the case may be. And then we're hooked on it for life, right? And we're manipulated into all this stuff through marketing and, just social engineering with all these people believing that they're on a spectrum. Okay. This is just common knowledge now. What I'm talking here is bullshit as far as the mainstream goes. What most people believe. This is complete bullshit. Well, you're on the spectrum, the spectrum, the spectrum, right? That's just, everybody knows that. The spectrum. Okay? And me, being on a spectrum, okay, but tell me I'm on a spectrum, put me on a spectrum. You're not putting me on medication, unless it actually is interfering with my life, unless it's causing damage to my life, me being on this spectrum, then I'm not concerned with it. Okay, put me on a spectrum, that's fine. I don't care. I really don't. But my point in that is that you can't keep all these people from putting themselves and others on a spectrum. You just can't. They're gonna do the shit. But before, while you're on this spectrum, you really need to consider the consequences of medication and this pharmaceutical intervention, because for thousands of years throughout history, we didn't have pharmaceutical intervention, and society and history just marched right along. Everybody did okay somehow. Well, they got us here, didn't they? Somehow. They didn't all die off, foaming at the mouth and choking on their tongues and shit because they were on the spectrum. So we just have to use common sense with this shit. We have to. We got to get back to common sense and realize that some people need medication, but others don't. Not everyone needs medication. And nobody's going to convince me, because I lived through it. I remember being in school in the 70s and 80s, and there were one or two hyper kids in every class, right? That's the way it was. And anybody who became a teacher was in school when they were kids, and they remember a couple of hyper kids in class, and they knew that they were going to have to deal with that shit when they became teachers. That was just par for the course. That was part of the job. I'm going to have to deal with a couple of hyper kids. I know that. But I remember that, Mrs. Jones, how she dealt with them, and that she did it really well. And so I'm going to copy her. I'm going to use that, try to do what she did with her hyper kids. I'm going to try to emulate that in my career and, deal with the hyper kids in that way. That's how it used to be. Now, I don't know, 80% of the kids in class are suffering with ADHD and need to be medicated and all this shit. So I don't know. There's something has happened between when I was a kid and today that has promoted this stuff. Something has changed. I don't know what it is. Do these kids actually suffer with ADHD? I don't know. What is ADHD? It's not a physical thing. It's not, they don't give you a blood test and say, okay, you've got ADHD. That's not how it is. So it's a mind thing, and any of that, I have questions about. Just point blank, I have questions about it. So all these kids now have ADHD. I just personally do not ever remember anyone with autism when I was a kid. I didn't hear that word until I was in my 20s. Now, that's not saying that it didn't exist. I'm just saying it could not have been that prevalent. And I went to many different schools and met many different children. It's not like I went to school in one small town my whole life and grew up there. No, I went to school from Florida to Washington State, California, New Mexico, Arizona, Oregon, California. I went to school all over the place. So I was in a lot of different classrooms with a lot of different kids. Never once saw an autistic kid. Never once heard the word autism, not that I can remember. Now, we had a couple hyperactive kids, one or two in every single class I was in, always. Kid just couldn't sit still. One or two just couldn't sit still. Teacher always getting on them. Sit down, little Billy. So now the whole class is on the spectrum. They're all medicated, and most of them. And the ones that aren't, they're the ones who their parents are wacky conspiracy theorists, and they don't want to medicate their kids and stuff. They're just weird, right? that little Billy doesn't take his ADHD medication because his parents are just, they're out there. They're strange. And my point in all that is to illustrate the fact that something has changed. It is different. People tend to ignore that or act like my memory is bad. No, my memory isn't bad. I remember being in class. I remember sitting there watching the hyperactive kid. I remember that. I remember looking around class and going outside and playing, and there were no kids who couldn't communicate, completely unable to communicate. That didn't happen not once in my life, in my childhood. I never met a kid who just couldn't communicate. Now, I met kids with Down syndrome and different things like that. Yes. Yep, I saw them. All kinds of different ailments and disabilities. But never not once a kid with autism. Never not once a kid with ADHD and all this other shit. A couple of hyperactive kids, yeah. But those hyperactive kids, they didn't need medication. They just didn't. They needed to be told to settle down, and they needed to hold their pants on until they could get outside and play. That's all. They needed to learn how to control that shit. And almost all of them did. They went on to lead productive lives to one degree or another. You got kids who weren't hyperactive who spent the rest of their lives in prison. Then you had kids who were hyperactive who went on to be very successful businessmen or congresswomen or whatever. So to say that to label this hyperactivity as ADHD and medicate it and then make it a spectrum so all the kids can be on it, you don't see anything suspect there? You don't see maybe there's an agenda there? Or is it just me? And I want to know what you think, so please put it down in the comments. What do you think about this shit? Am I completely off my rocker? Am I on the spectrum? Does me questioning all this shit, does this put me on some kind of spectrum and I need to go to the doctor and get some medication? Is that what you think? Because I want to know. But one thing I do know is that these companies are making massive profits with this shit, with these spectrums, with these monthly subscriptions and all that stuff, okay? They're getting us hooked into this stuff to pay every single month for this medication, for this service, for this, and it's almost never what it's supposed to be, what you think it is. You get on a medication and then one of the side effects is usually so aggravating or debilitating that you need another medication to deal with that side effect. So now you end up on 3, 4, 5 medications to deal with the side effects of the first one, and then the domino effect of all the other side effects until you can kind of balance it out and manage it. So now you're taking 5 pills because you were on a spectrum, and you could have just dealt with whatever the hell it was that put you on the spectrum in the first damn place. That was, it just blows my mind. And then, and all the other stuff too, the monthly fees, the monthly subscriptions, the psychological manipulation they have. Yeah, it's great to be able to store our photos in the cloud, right? Called the cloud. The clouds are fluffy and white and they're beautiful and we love them, so they store them in the cloud. But you can't have them back unless you pay me my monthly fee, right? You can't have all those pictures of your children as babies and stuff that you've trusted me with. Well, I'm going to hang on to them for you until you cough up the dough. You kick in, and then you can look at your babies again. That kind of thing. Yeah, you can have, you can watch all your favorite shows for as long as you pay me my monthly fee. Oh, and by the way, we're throwing ads in there now. So the monthly fee you were paying, that's so you can watch it and you can watch my advertisements as well. You don't like ads, you don't like watching commercials, well, you got to give me a little more then. That kind of shit. And then you get to where you like a show like like Stranger Things or something. So then, you want to watch the next season of it or the next episode. So you can't let that subscription be canceled, can you? Because they don't tell you when the next season's coming out. It's not like it used to be where the next season came out on a certain day of the year and you knew when to expect it. Nowadays, you just don't know when. When's the next season of Stranger Things coming out? Hell, I don't know. When next year after, I don't know. I can't cancel my subscription because I don't know. They might drop it tomorrow. I don't know. So they're keeping us in the dark. They're keeping us confused. They're bombarding us with advertisements, and all advertisements are psychological programming, because they cannot tell you that you're happy and you're okay and you're not on the spectrum. But buy my stuff anyway. You're okay just where you are. You don't need my shit. You don't need this dumb shit I'm selling. You don't need it. You're great. You're doing good. Yeah, keep going the way you're going. You're going down the right path. They can't tell you that. They've got to tell you, even subliminally or in an undercurrent kind of way, they've got to tell you, you're not good enough. You're not good looking enough. You're not going to get a good husband or a wife or that good job or that good, whatever. You're not going to be happy unless you buy my shit. Then you're going to be able to be happy. Then you're going to be okay. Then you're going to be worthy. You were worthy the moment you were born. That's the truth that they won't tell you. You're okay. You don't need that shit. You don't need that medication. You don't need that subscription. You don't need any of that shit. Now, I'm not saying that nobody needs medication. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there are people out there who might be better off if they did some research and found other ways to deal with their problems. That's what I'm saying. Because I have problems and I could go get medication, right? I could go get medication and just veg out on the couch and feel okay. I could do that. But I don't want to. I want to deal with life in reality and on my terms. I want to deal with that shit. If I'm messed up one day, I want to, in my mind and in my head, and I can't get out of it, and I'm in a rut, then I want to figure out how to get out of it myself so I can do it again in the future. I don't want to trust to pharmaceutical intervention for the rest of my life to keep me okay. And that's my personal preference. That's my opinion. I'm not up here trying to tell people not to go to the doctor and get medicated. If that's your deal, do it. But if you haven't done that yet, you might want to think about alternate ways, depending on how serious your affliction is. Because if you're clear over on just the normal human being side of the spectrum, you might want to think about it. If you're over here on the other side of the spectrum where it's affecting your life, well, maybe you do need some pharmaceutical intervention. But at least think about it. This is Gen X Thinks. Let's think about this shit before we jump headfirst into a lifelong prescription medication habit. All right? And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming a member, I'll leave that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that super thanks button down there. Or you can head over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. I appreciate those of you who do that. Thank you very much. And I'll leave that link down in the description as well. If you're interested in Gen X gear, we got some pretty cool stuff over there at Redbubble. Gen X Thinks and Gen X branded stuff, t-shirts, coffee mugs, stickers, all kinds of cool stuff over there. But I'll leave that link down in the description too for those of you who are interested. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. That helps out a hell of a lot. So thank you very much to those of you who do that. I really appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email is genxthinks@gmail.com. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.